All right, everyone. So today we're going to be talking about a couple of important concepts in economics, which is MPC and MPS. MPC stands for the marginal propensity to consume, and MPS stands for the marginal propensity to save. And really what we're looking at with these two concepts is we're looking at how people handle their money. Do they save it or do they consume it? And today we're going to take a look at marginal propensity to consume, marginal propensity to save. We're also going to be looking at something called average propensity to consume and average propensity to save as well. So let's start off by talking about disposable income. Disposable income, or DI, is income after taxes or net income. So disposable income is the income you earn after taxes. I think of it um, in terms of net income. I think of the income you catch after taxes, the income you net after taxes. Think about like fishing, what you would net after taxes. So net income is what you earn after taxes. So disposable income is equal to gross income minus taxes. It's also known as take-home pay. It's the amount of money you bring home after taxes. Now, when you have disposable income, there's two things you can do with it. You could either consume it, which is spending money on goods and services, or you can save it, not spend money on goods and services. So pretty simple. You either spend it, which is consume, or you save it, which is not spending it. Now, I want to go ahead and take a look at consumption. So consumption is also looked at as household spending. So the ability to consume is constrained by various things. Number one, it's constrained by the amount of disposable income because you can't consume disposable income that you don't have. The propensity to save. If you save more, you're going to consume less. Now let me pose a question to you. So do households consume if disposable income is equal to zero? If you have no disposable income, is it possible to consume if you're not bringing any money home? And it is. And this is also known as autonomous consumption. This is consumption that occurs when income levels are zero. It's consumption that occurs not based on income. It's also known as dissaving. When you're spending on consumer goods in excess of your disposable income, usually this spending will come from one of two places. People will either borrow or they will go into savings because they don't necessarily have any disposable income to spend. So they'll borrow some income or they will eat away into savings. And usually this autonomous consumption is going to be done to meet basic needs. All right, so first equation I want to look at here is something called the average propensity to consume. So that is the amount of consumption over the amount of disposable income. So it's the percentage of disposable income that is spent. So let's say you have disposable income of $100 and you are consuming $70 of it. So you would have 70 over 100. So you would have 70% or 0.7. Usually these average propensity to consumes are expressed as a decimal. So in that case where you have $70 worth of consumption over $100 worth of disposable income, your APC, your average propensity to consume, is going to be 0.7. All right, so let's go on to saving. Now, saving is just household not spending. The ability to save is constrained by a few things: the amount of disposable income. If you don't have any disposable income, you're not going to be able to save that disposable income. And then the propensity to consume. So if you consume more, you're going to be saving less. Now, generally, households will not save if disposable income is equal to 0. And the reason is people don't usually borrow to save. Generally, they'll borrow to consume. Because if you're borrowing to save, then you're basically borrowing and you're paying interest on what you borrow. So you're paying interest to save. Generally, that does not happen. So then another equation here is the average propensity to save, the APS. That's equal to the amount of saving over the amount of disposable income. It's the percentage of disposable income that is not spent. So let's go back to that scenario that I talked about with consumption there, where you had $100 worth of disposable income and you consumed about $70 of it. Now that way, if you wanted to look at how much saving you have and what your average propensity to save is in that scenario, basically if you're consuming $70, that means you're going to be saving $30. So your average propensity to save is going to be $30 over $100, which is equal to 30%. But remember, generally that's going to be expressed as a decimal, which is 0.3. So in that scenario where you had $100 worth of disposable income and you were saving $30 of it, your APS is going to be 0.3. Let's look at some equations here. So your APC plus your APS is always going to be equal to 1. So your percentage of money saved plus your percentage of money consumed is always going to add up to 1. So going back to that scenario where you were consuming $70, you're saving $30 of that $100. So in that scenario, your APC was 0.7, your APS was 0.3, 0.7 plus 0.3 is equal to 1. And your APC plus your APS is always going to be equal to 1. Now you have some algebraic manipulations. 1 minus APC is equal to APS. 1 minus APS is equal to APC. If your APC is greater than 1, that is dissaving. You're spending more than your disposable income. And if you have negative APS, that is also dissaving. So let me give you a scenario here. Let's say you have, once again, you have a disposable income of $100 and you consume $50 worth of that money. Your APC, therefore, is going to be 0.5 and your APS is also going to be 0.5. Because remember, your APC plus your APS has to add up to 1. So if your APC is 0.5, your APS is going to be 0.5. 0.5 plus 0.5 will add up to 1. Now we're going to move on from average propensity to consume and average propensity to save to something called marginal propensity to consume and marginal propensity to save. And here we're going to be taking a look at things on the margin. Remember, when we're talking about marginal analysis, we're talking about changes in the status quo, particularly in the amount of 1. So your marginal propensity to consume is going to look like this. It's going to be your change in consumption over your change in disposable income. It's going to be the percentage of every dollar earned that is spent. Okay, so the percentage of every extra dollar earned that is spent. So it's what percentage of every extra dollar earned is spent. We're not looking at the total amount that you're earning. We're taking a look at what is the percentage of that single extra dollar that is spent. Average propensity to consume, for example, is going to take a look. Your disposable income, it went up $100. What percentage of it was was spent. Marginal propensity to consume is going to be looking at that one extra dollar. That extra dollar, what percentage of it was spent? Now, marginal propensity to save. Okay, that's going to be your change in savings over your change in disposable income. It's the percentage of every extra dollar earned that is saved. So remember that when you were looking at average propensity to save, you were looking at if you earned your disposable income was $100 and you saved 30% of it, you were looking at average propensity to save. With marginal propensity to save, you're saying, okay, for each extra dollar, one extra dollar, what percentage of it is going to be saved? So a couple of equations here. Your MPC plus your MPS is going to be equal to 1. Okay, you have that extra dollar. What percentage of it is going to be consumed? What percentage of it is going to be saved? Add that together, you're going to get that one extra dollar. 1 minus MPC is going to be equal to MPS, and 1 minus MPS is going to be equal to MPC, and that's just algebraic manipulations there. So let me give you a couple of scenarios. Let's say you consume 30 cents of every dollar. Your marginal propensity to consume is going to be 0.3. And once you know that, you can easily figure out your MPS, your marginal propensity to save, as 0.7. 0.3 plus 0.7 adds up to 1. Let's say you save 20 cents of every dollar. Your marginal propensity to save is going to be 0.2. And once you know your marginal propensity to save, you can easily figure out your marginal propensity to consume at that point. It's going to be 0.8. 0.8 plus 0.2 is equal to $1, or is equal to 1. So once you know the MPC, you can easily figure out the MPS. Once you know the MPS, you can easily figure out the MPC. But the key thing to understand here is that difference between marginal propensity to consume, marginal propensity to save, and average propensity to consume, average propensity to save. With the marginal propensity to consume and to save, you're looking at that single extra dollar, what percentage of it is consumed and saved, versus average propensity to consume and save, you're looking at an extra amount of disposable income, whatever amount that may be, and what percentage is saved and what percentage is consumed. Generally in this class, we're going to work more with marginal propensity to consume and marginal propensity to save, especially when we get into what's called the multiplier. All right, let's take a look at some of the determinants of consumption and saving. The first one is wealth. If you have an increased amount of wealth, you're going to be feeling pretty bold, you're going to be feeling pretty good. So your amount of consumption is going to increase, and your amount of saving is going to decrease. You're more likely to spend the money if you have an increased amount of wealth. Decreased wealth, you're feeling a little scared, probably going to do the opposite. Decrease in the amount of consumption, increase in the amount of savings. You're kind of saving for that anticipated rainy day there. Expectations, positive expectations, you're going to start a spending, okay? So increase in consumption, decrease in savings. Negative expectations, once again, you're kind of scared, you're going to decrease your consumption, you're going to increase your savings because you think bad times are coming in the future. Household debt. If you have a high amount of debt, that's going to decrease your amount of consumption, increase your amount of savings. You're probably going to feel a little scared at that point. You're going to want to save and not necessarily consume. But if you don't have much debt, it's going to be the opposite. You're going to increase your amount of consumption, and you're going to decrease your amount of savings. Then you have taxes. So a tax increase this one's a little different because your tax increase is actually going to lower your disposable income. It's actually going to decrease your consumption and your saving. And a tax decrease is going to increase your consumption and increase your saving. Because you have more disposable income. So notice what's really key here with a lot of these determinants is what John Maynard Keynes called animal spirits. Being scared, being happy, those kind of emotions can really dictate whether you're going to consume or whether you're going to save. What's also key is to notice that with 3 of these 4 determinants, with wealth, expectations, and household debt, if consumption goes down, savings goes up. So they're inversely related. One's going to go down and the other's going to go up. If savings goes up, consumption's going to go down. Okay, so that's key to understand that about wealth, expectations, and household debt. With taxes, however, because you have less disposable income, you are actually going to see both consumption and saving fall. So an increase in taxes is going to decrease consumption and decrease savings. If you're going to decrease your taxes, it's going to increase consumption and increase savings. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and give you some scenarios, and we're going to go over what's going to happen to consumption and saving under these scenarios and why. Okay, so let's say a whole bunch of people win the lottery. That's an increase in wealth. Wealth is the determinant there. And so, therefore, an increase in wealth is going to push up consumption, and it's going to decrease savings. Let's say people start reading that a recession is going to be lasting for many, many more years. That is a negative expectation. That negative expectation is going to decrease consumption, and it's going to increase savings. Next scenario here, let's say there's a tax increase in an economy. The determinant there is going to be taxes, and it's a tax increase, so therefore you're going to have a decrease in consumption and a decrease in savings. And then let's say that you have a bunch of people that start paying off their houses. That would be a decrease in debt. So the determinant there would be household debt. You have less household debt, so therefore you are going to have more consumption and less savings. All right, so let's take a look at the assessment here. For number 1, we're going to describe the determinants of consumption and saving. We just talked about those, so that should be easy. Number 2, we're going to describe the difference between the marginal propensity to save and the marginal propensity to consume. All right, so if you need to pause, that's perfectly fine. Get these done. Then, don't forget the summary. In a paragraph, describe what you learned today. And we'll go from there. Have a good one. See you tomorrow.